Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to cross the Øresund once again, and we're going to go back to Copenhagen in Denmark, one of my favourite places in the world, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, although I would say that these days this brewery is known mainly for their hazy, New England, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, and we've had some really nice examples of that style here on the channel from this brewery as well. But the beer we're going to have a look at today, I guess, could be considered as being one of their more classic beers. It's one that I've seen around quite a lot, but I just never got around to trying this one because, you know, I used to buy the things that seemed a little bit more unusual actually. But when I saw this beer was being released here in Sweden this month, I thought, you know, we have to get this done and get a review of this beer. So curious to see how it turns out, and hopefully it's as good as I've heard. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Gørløse in the northwest of Copenhagen, and we're going to have a look at yet another beer from Dry and Bitter Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called the Christian Bale Ale. It comes in at 4.6% ABV, and this one is a session IPA. So yeah, this beer was released through the Lokal Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for April of 2021. The exact date this month was the 6th of April, so a little bit later because of Easter this month. But yeah, very, very curious to see how it turns out. I've heard good things about this beer, and like I said, it is one of the classic beers that Dry and Bitter have done. I certainly saw this one when I first discovered the brewery a good couple of years ago. But yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. Nice to do another session IPA. I've been enjoying some of the lower alcohol IPAs in recent times, and I think this could well be the lowest alcohol beer that I've had from Dry and Bitter so far. So that's another interesting point about this review. But always nice to review beers from these guys. Always nice to do some Danish beers for you here on the channel, and I hope that you guys watching over there are enjoying them as well. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Dry and Bitter Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly because I live very close to Denmark and I love my Danish beers. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Dry and Bitter Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Dry and Bitter Brewing Company, or Dry and Bitter Brewery as they're also known, was founded back in 2015 by the owners of Fermentorum, one of the numerous beer bars that you'll find in Copenhagen. But this is Soren Parker Wagner and Jay Pollard, and this was basically a continuation of the Crooked Moon brewing brand that they had previously. But these guys were also involved in founding Ulkollektivet, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is a collective brewing space in Gørløse with a few other breweries who went on to do other things as well. But the brewery brew their beers there along with Ulsnegern. At the moment, Gamma Brewing were brewing there until very recently as well, but they've got their own brewery now in, I forget the name of the exact part of Copenhagen that's in now, but they're still out in the kind of west, the northwest of Copenhagen. But yeah, Bad Seed, Black Rooster and Ghost Brewing have also brewed up there for a period of time as well, but they've gone on to different places now. But in addition to the Copenhagen Fermentoren, which you'll find on Sunde Boulevard, quite close to the Central Railway Station, they've also got another bar in Aarhus, and both of these Fermentoren bars have beers that are brewed exclusively by Dry and Bitter Brewing Company for them. But today they're brewing in the region of 200 to 250,000 litres of beer per year, and they've been gradually expanding the capacity of the brewery over the last couple of years. They also host their own beer festival every year, which is called the Fermentoren's Flying Circus. Hopefully I can get across to Denmark at some point and have a look at that. But yeah, these guys are probably one of the best known and most respected Danish craft breweries these days, actually. There's quite a few really good breweries over there in Copenhagen now. But yeah, probably Ulsnegern, Dry and Bitter and Gamma. These guys were known collectively as the three Ulkollektivet breweries. over there, but yeah, dry and bitter are the main ones now from what I understand. But as of April 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced around 140 different kinds of beer, and they also produce some sour beers these days as well. I need to try my first sour beer from Dry and Bitter Brewing, but I've had some really nice imperial stouts, as I say, and I would, you know, consider this brewery as being more well known for their New England hazy IPAs. One of the best ones I've ever had from them is Hey Femme, and I kept the can for that because this was their 5th anniversary beer, one of the best IPAs I've ever reviewed on the channel. Love that one. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Dry and Bitter Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. 140 different beers over 5 years. You know, that's, yeah, about 30 beers a year, something like that these guys have done. So they will be about to have their 6th anniversary quite soon, come to think of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what their 6th anniversary beer is going to be. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we get on. So yeah, just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open up. I actually had an outtake before I filmed this review because I called it the Gareth Bale Ale. I was thinking of the footballer rather than the actor. So yeah, I realised that and I looked at the back of it and I was like, oh shit, I got this wrong. So restarted the video because I'd only just started. But yeah. So, Christian Bale Ale, this one, named after the famous American actor, of course. You know, trying to think how many different films I've seen him in. American Psycho, Terminator Salvation, you know, quite lots of different things. Very, very good actor, actually. Apparently a very angry bugger, though, from what I've heard. But yeah, this beer itself, though, 4.6% session IPA. I've talked about this in reviews before. You know, I'm sure that when this beer was first released, it was released as a pale ale, actually. I'm sure it was released as an APA originally. And I guess this is one of the things that we see, and I've spoken with some of the other beer tubers about this. Where is the line between a pale ale and a session IPA? Now, technically speaking, a pale ale is, you know, pale ale, IPA, double IPA, barley wine. These beers are all related through their hop to malt ratios. So what I think they do with a session IPA is they keep the same hop to malt ratio, but take the malt content down so that you get a lower alcohol percentage. Because remember, it's the sugars in the alcohol that are or the sugars in from the malts that are extracted from the malts that are converted to alcohol, and that's what gives you your ABV. But I think in this case, you know, this one is you know, I think in the case of the session IPA, that is it. But yeah, I'm sure when this beer was first released it was a pale ale, so I don't know if they'll have changed the recipe a little bit over time. I'd be curious to know that. But yeah, that's your basic difference, in my opinion at least, or in my experience, between a pale ale and a session IPA. So the pale ale has a certain hop to malt ratio, whereas the session IPA has an IPA hop to malt ratio, but the malt content is lower, and so it's lower in alcohol. That, as far as I'm aware, is the technical definition. I forgot to show you the dry and bitter symbol on this one. I always show you this. I do like their thing. They've actually just released a new series of beers called the Ampersand series, which is a series of single hopped IPAs as well, so I'll need to get a look at some of those and see if there's any hop that interests me in particular, because I'd be curious to see how these guys interpret that style. But yeah, this one is a 440ml can. I think I paid about 45 Swedish kroners for this one, which is about the same price as the Swedish IPAs, but usually you'll pay about 10 kroners extra, of course, since it's an import beer. But yeah, 45 Swedish kroners translates to €4.50, about £4 sterling, and maybe about $5.25 American for those of you in different parts of the world. But yeah, Christian Bale Ale, 4.6% ABV. It says on the site here, Christian Bale Ale has all the hops of an IPA, but with a lower alcohol content. A fruity mosaic dry hop is balanced out by a dry malt backbone. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. Let's get it out then and have a taste of this one. Nice to finally get around to tasting this beer. Let's see whether it's more of a New England or a West Coasty session IPA, this one. It certainly looks a little bit more New Englandy, but I'm sure, no, I'm sure the first beer that I ever had from Dry and Bitter was called Hobo Chick. Well, that one's poured with quite a big head. We'll need to let that settle a bit. But yeah, it says here this one is just, yeah, water, barley malt, hops and yeast. So yeah, this one doesn't have wheat or oats or anything in it. So yeah, that's quite interesting. This one will be more of a kind of old school West Coasty IPA then. That's our West Coasty Session IPA. So that's quite interesting for sure. But as you can see, look, it's poured with a massive head. You can see there's about a finger and a half, nearly 2 fingers of a frothy, I would say cream coloured head on this one. It's actually getting more and more bumpy as time goes on. It's definitely more frothy down the bottom though. But you can smell that lovely mosaic hop in this. In terms of colour, I would say if we shine the light through this beer, it's got a lovely kind of rich, darker yellow to it. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it looks, it does look very, very nice. Good level of haze to this one, which, as I say, it's got a bit of that kind of more natural haze vibe to it than the full blown soupy gloopy sort of thing that you would get from the New Englands. But yeah, it looks very, very nice. So yeah, 1 or 2 little bits of sediment sitting on the bottom there. So yeah, but it certainly looks like a nice session IPA, this one, and definitely not out with the realms of what we would expect from this particular style in terms of its appearance. That head has gotten really bumpy there, so we'll put some more in the glass after we do the aroma. But certainly looks the part. Let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this beer then. Yeah, it smells like quite a straight shooter actually. So yeah, you get the mosaic out of this one right away. As I've told you before, you know, mosaic, it's about 14% alpha acid hop, lovely juicy kind of tangerine notes from it, from what I remember. But yeah, just love it, absolutely love it. But yeah, you can smell this beer. The malty side of things is quite interesting. When you say it's got a bit of dryness to it, you can actually pick that out in the aroma and sort of smell it straight away. But yeah, in terms of that aroma then, let's try and break this down a little bit. So the malty backbone to this beer is like a very fresh, you know, white bread. It's like that, a big kind of fresh white doughy bready sort of thing. So I really like that about this beer for sure. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, so I think there's not too much more to the malt base than that, other than a big doughy, fresh white bread. You know, you can smell a little bit of there is a wee bit of an almost kind of Werther's Original butter candy, kind of brown sugary thing in there, like a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit. But yeah, there's a bit of bread crust as well. So yeah, soft white bread, bit of a bread crusty element to it, and then also yeah, just a little touch of a sweet Werther's Original type thing in there, and a little bit of a biscuity malt as well. So yeah, definitely take a little bit of time and just mull over that malty backbone to the beer, because it's quite unusual these days actually just how bready this one is, because normally you've got a lot of oats and wheat and things in there, a bit of oaty creaminess and a bit of wheaty bitiness, whereas this one is straight up soft white bread actually, which I can really appreciate. So yeah, that's your malt base in this one. I don't think there's too much else to describe with that. Big soft white bread, a bit of bread crust, a bit of Werther's Original, and a wee bit of biscuit. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, pardon me, so yeah, hoppy side of things, there's a little touch of earthiness to this one, which I can really appreciate. So yeah, little tiny touch of earthiness there at the back of the nose, which is one of the characteristics of the mosaic hop. As you come further forward from that, there's a lovely big floral aromaticity to the beer, which I can really appreciate as well. It's got quite a deep floral aromatic note to it, and just a little touch of spice, but then you've also got a little bit of grassiness in there as well, and a wee touch of zestiness too. So yeah, I can really appreciate how all of that goes together in this beer also. But yeah, on the I think the green component for me really leans towards that floral component too. I'm just really curious to see how this translates into the flavour actually. But yeah, good bit of grassiness, zestiness, a nice little bit of a big kind of floral element in there, and also some big juicy, oily characters out of this one too. So yeah, yeah, for me, the fruity side of things is kind of what you would expect. There's one or two little apricot-y notes in there. There's little tropical elements in there, but it's a juicy tangerine orangey note, which is the kind of characteristic thing with with Mosaic. So it's showing you kind of everything you'd expect. I'm just going to see if I can get all of this in. There we are. That's a nice pour right on the knot. Look at that. But yeah, you definitely have that bit of juicy tangerine. Check that it's in line from OCD. Juicy tangerine, a little touch of pineapple, some apricot notes underneath. But yeah, this beer gives you kind of everything you would expect from. It gives you everything you would expect from a sort of West Coast, a kind of West Coasty pale ale, I feel like, especially a Mosaic hopped one. But yeah, I'm proud of that head. It's just nice and flat right over the rim of the glass, even if I do say so myself. But as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. This one is quite interesting because it comes across as a little bit old school, but lovely and big and bready in a sense. So yeah, let's go for it then. This one is the Christian Bale Ale, a 4.6% session IPA from Dry and Bitter Brewing Company in Gørløse, just over the water in Copenhagen in Denmark. Slanje, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, it is quite. It is quite. It's quite similar to what you would expect from the aroma. I would say that about it. Quite an old school beer for sure. Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's. I do wonder if they will have changed the recipe of this, because I would have thought back in, say, 2015 or so. I remember the first beer that I tried from them, the Hobo Chick, was a proper old school West Coast IPA, whereas and it had I remember it being quite nice and oily and had a bit of a caramel malty backbone to it, whereas this one seems as if it might have been sort of adjusted a little bit to be more kind of New England friendly almost, if that makes sense. It feels like a sort of more modern interpretation. So I would, as I say, I'd be very curious to know whether this recipe has remained the same. But overall, regardless of that, I think it is a nice, just drinkable, sessionable beer. This one, this is like a sort of festival beer for me. It's one of these ones that just kind of goes down very, very easy. So as a sort of signature beer, I think this is a good one. So thumbs up to Dry and Bitter Brewery again for this. Is this the craziest and most exciting beer you're going to find from these guys? No, but it's not intended to be. I think that accolade. I think the Hey Femme that I showed you earlier, I think that accolade, the best beer I've had from them still, that one still holds the accolade. So I'm curious to see if there's a Hey 6 at some point as well. But yeah, very straight shooting beer, this one. But it does the job, certainly. It really does the job. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this beer for you then in the middle of the palate. So we'll start off as we always do with that middle third of your tongue. So straight away with the beer, you can feel that nice, soft, doughy, white bready sort of quality. That goes right across the middle of your palate. But there's some very nice, there are some very, very nice how we say, sort of bread crusty elements to this as well. The further you go into the aftertaste with this one, you can feel there's a few more kind of grainy, bready elements come out of there as well. So big soft, doughy, white bready character sitting in the middle of the palate, and then just underneath it you're getting a little bit of a kind of bread crusty element too. Certainly in the very dead centre of your palate you'll get one or two little sweet elements, a little bit of a, as I say, a kind of Werther's Originally type element. This malt base, even though it's straight up barley malt that's in here, I do think it seems like a little bit of Golden Promise or something like that. There's something familiar about this malt in here, maybe a little touch of Maris Otter, a little bit of Golden Promise or something like that in here. But yeah, there's certainly a wee bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy type thing in the middle of the palate, and as you move further out from that, it gradually develops a little bit of a more kind of biscuity character. But it's certainly a more kind of New Englandy leaning pale ale, this one, than it is an old school West Coaster. So, as I say, curious about whether this recipe would have changed over time, but that's another issue. But yeah, this certainly could be quite interesting for sure. I'm just curious to see how this develops. But yeah, on that border region between middle third and kind of back third of your palate, then you can feel there's a little bit more doughiness there, and then the bread crusty notes do get a little bit sort of grainy, if you like, and then onto that back third of your palate, you can feel the back third of the palate is definitely a little bit more sort of grainy and things like that for sure. But yeah, I certainly like that about the beer. And then on top of that, on top of the that kind of more grainy backbone, if you like, there is certainly more of a kind of, you can get more of the kind of doughy and yeasty elements coming out of it. So the flavour on the back third of the palate feels a little bit taller, so you get those nice airy yeasty elements coming out of it, which I think is really good. But yeah, I think it's yeah, it is pretty interesting just how it gets more and more bready, and sort of it just develops a little bit of graininess the further you go into the aftertaste with it. But yeah, as you start on the back third of your palate, you can feel the sort of yeasty, airy notes are a bit kind of taller, if you like, and it just condenses down as you come further forward. Then as you reach that middle third of your palate, the flavour sort of condenses down and becomes definitely a little bit sort of more condensed as you go into that kind of middle third of your palate. But it is quite straight shooting, this beer. Doughy white bread crust, a little bit of a kind of grainy bitey thing in there, Werther's Original, and just a little hint of biscuit as well. So I really like how this how that goes together in this one for sure. So yeah, I think that's pretty interesting, definitely. But yeah, I think that covers the malty side of this beer quite well, in honesty. So yeah, let's look at the hoppy side of the beer. In the back corners of the palate, there's a nice little touch of earthiness there. As you move further forward, it gets a little bit herbal, and then as you move progressively towards the front corners of the palate, it develops a nice big sort of floral aromatic thing to it. So yeah, I like that about this one. It's definitely a little touch sort of spicy on the front corners of the palate too. Then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more kind of grassy in a sense too. So yeah, you get a little bit of zestiness. You do get a little bit of a grassy, zesty kind of thing coming out of the beer too. So yeah, the green component I think works quite well. You get a nice bright floral quality. I think it does lean towards the more floral side of things as you go further into the taste with it, but that matches the kind of, it gives you a little bit of contrast to the malty base. When they say it's a bit of a dry malty base, I can definitely see what they mean with that actually. But let's focus on that front third of your tongue where you get the nice juicy fruity esters. So on the border region between middle third and front third of your palate, again you get a little bit of that doughy kind of bready build up and a little bit of bread crust. Then the baseline of the front third of your tongue there is a soft kind of bready element again, which I can really appreciate. So yeah, I certainly like how that goes together in this one too. But on top of that, it is pretty much straight up mosaic. As I always say, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, on the back half of that front third of your tongue, you get there are a few little sort of apricot-y notes in there. You get a little touch of pineapple, I would say. But then as you move further forward onto the kind of front half of the front third of your tongue, it's all about that kind of slightly more oily, juicy tangerine orange in there. So yeah, it is basically just a mosaic session IPA, this one, absolutely. But it feels as if it's quite New England friendly, and I'm not convinced that this beer would have been like that originally. But as I say, if someone from the brewery watches this, let me know whether this recipe has changed a little bit over time. I would be very, very curious about that, because I would have thought originally this beer would have a little bit more, pardon me, of a sort of caramelly biscuity element to it. So yeah, definitely quite a New England friendly pale ale, this one, if that makes sense. So yeah, this was one of the first beers they released. I think, you know, they first started releasing their beers in 2015. I think I drank the first ones from them in 2016 or so, the Hobo Chick. But yeah, that was when they were still in the 330ml bottles, of course, which was quite fun. Got that out of Kiosk in the basement. But yeah, overall, I think this is very nice. It is just a very straight shooting, drinkable beer, this one. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, let's round off the tasting then with the mouthfeel. Definitely a kind of mid-bodied beer, leaning towards the lighter end of mid-bodied though, in my opinion. Carbonation is quite smooth, which is what you'd expect. So yeah, smooth carbonation. The mouthfeel overall, I think it's just a very smooth, drinkable beer. Hoppy bitterness wise, I think maybe about 30 IBUs, definitely. So it's kind of standard 25 to 30 IBUs, this beer, I would say. I'm probably leaning more towards the 25, I would say, rather than anything. But the malt base, smooth and bready, that's the big dominant thing of this. So it is quite a smooth malt base, and it's got a wee bit of dryness in there, like they suggest on the can. I would say that, I do agree with them there. And then you've just got a little bit of a juicy fruitiness, but the fruitiness has a little bit more of a kind of West Coasty type oiliness to it as well, rather than the big juicy New England type fruitiness that you'll get these days. But overall, just a really nice, solid, drinkable beer. As I said earlier, not the craziest and most out there beer that you're going to get from Dry and Bitter, but pretty damn solid. And you know, back in 2015, 2016, this beer would have, you know, a lot of people would have been raving about this one, and that's how Dry and Bitter have made their name. You know, they're very well respected for a reason. And I've had a lot of good beers from these guys over the years. So yeah, I think that rounds off this review quite nicely. This one was the Christian Bale Ale, 4.6% ABV session IPA, just a really nice, solid, drinkable beer. So yeah, well done to Dry and Bitter for this one. Nice to finally get this beer tried and tested. And we'll see what our next review from these guys holds. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Dry and Bitter Brewing. And like I say, we'll return to these guys very soon. The Christian Bale Ale 4.6% session IPA from Dry and Bitter Brewing Company in Gurløse in the northwest of Copenhagen. Slàinte, skål, cheers, check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. Cheers.